I remember the moment when I first caught an American bass. Back then, I didn't know that it wasn't just a fish, but an entire culture. In the United States, bass is like football in Europe, a passion, a lifestyle, and a business all at once. Bass is one of the most popular sport fish in the world. According to statistics, more than 30 million people in the US go out on the water every year specifically to chase bass. It's not just fishing, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I was always amazed at how different bass can be depending on the body of water. In Florida, it behaves like a predatory crocodile, while in mountain lakes, it is cautious, almost like a trout, and that's exactly what makes it such an interesting opponent. In the early years, I thought that bass is just bass, but over time I realized that there is an entire classification of species, and each of them requires its own approach. Let's start with the most famous one, right? The largemouth bass. This is the fish you see on most American logos and trophies. It's easy to recognize by its huge mouth that literally swallows the lure. Largemouth lives in warm, still waters. I've caught it in grass-choked bays where the water looks like green soup. That's where it feels like king. It is aggressive yet lazy at the same time. It doesn't chase prey like a zander, it waits in ambush. And when you make the right cast, the strike feels like an explosion. The second species is the smallmouth bass. If the largemouth is a heavyweight fighter, then the smallmouth is a middleweight boxer with insane speed. It jumps, spins, and fights to the very end. Smallmouth chooses clear, cool water, rivers with rocky bottoms, mountain lakes, strong current. That's its home. Every bite feels like an electric shock. There is also the spotted bass. It's often confused with the smallmouth, but its character is completely different. It's more cunning and extremely picky. Spotted bass loves depth and structure. I often find it near submerged trees and rocky ledges. This is the bass that punishes mistakes. In the US, bass is almost everywhere, like from Florida to California, from Texas to Michigan, and in every state it has its own personality. In the southern states, the season lasts almost all year. I've caught bass even in January when the water temperature barely exceeded 10 degrees Celsius. It's a real paradise for fans. In the north, the season is shorter but more intense. Here, bass feeds greedily knowing that winter's coming, and this is where you can catch real monsters. Bass is a classic ambush predator. It doesn't chase its prey for long, it waits. And when the victim makes a mistake, there are no chances left. Its diet is very diverse: fish, frogs, crayfish, insects, even small birds. I've seen bass leap out of the water after a chick. In spring, its behavior changes, spawning begins, and bass becomes an aggressive defender of its territory. At this time, the strikes are especially violent. My first bass spinning rod was too soft. I lost dozens of fish before I realized that stiffness is essential here. Bass does not forgive weakness. For largemouth, I use a medium or heavy action bait casting rod. It allows me to punch through grass and pull fish out of snags. This is real power fishing. For smallmouth, I take a lighter setup. Accuracy and sensitivity are crucial here. Every pebble on the bottom is transmitted straight into your hand. Let's start with the classics: crankbaits and other hard lures. Surface poppers create explosions on the water that bass simply cannot ignore. This is the most emotional kind of fishing. Spinnerbait is my favorite lure in muddy water. It vibrates and flashes like something alive. The bass feels it even before it sees it. Soft plastic worms are a separate religion. You retrieve the lure slowly, barely feeling anything, and suddenly there's a sharp ooder, a brutal hit. I always start by searching for structure: rocks, snags, depth changes. That's where bass lives. Empty water almost never produces results. Every cast is a dialogue with the fish. If it stays silent, I change the lure, the speed, the angle. Bass likes it when you look for the right key. Over time, I learned to read the water as if it were an open book. If the surface is calm, but you see tiny bubbles along the grass line, it means bass is breathing there. Such little details decide everything. In the morning, bass is active but not frantic. It comes up to the shallows to hunt fry. That's why dawn is the golden hour for an angler. In summer, everything changes. The sun rises high and bass moves into the shade. I look for it under bridges, near pontoons, in the shadow of trees. Spring is my favorite time for bass fishing. The water warms up and the fish becomes aggressive. During this period, even a beginner can feel like a pro. During the spawn, I always try to fish carefully. Bass defends its nest, and the strikes are crazy, but it's important to release the fish quickly. Summer is the season of big tournaments. Lakes are crowded with boats, and the pressure on fish is enormous. The one who thinks outside the box wins. In autumn, bass starts feeding greedily, preparing for winter and attacking almost anything that moves. I call this period bass madness. Winter in the southern US still allows you to fish. There are fewer bites, but each one is a small celebration. Patience is everything here. The biggest mistake is casting just anywhere. Bass doesn't like empty places. If there is no cover in the water, your chances are almost zero. The second mistake is retrieving too fast. Beginners think the faster the better, but in reality, bass often attacks a slow, lazy lure. The third mistake is being afraid of snags. Yes, you can lose lures there, but that's where the trophies live. The first time I attended a bass tournament was in Texas. It felt like a rock concert, only with boats. Thousands of people, music, cameras, fans. BASS and MLF are like Formula One in the fishing world. Millions are involved, and every cast is broadcast live. Bass turns into a real star. I stood in the crowd watching the pros weigh in their fish. Every big bass was met with applause. It's more than a sport, it's a show. Every bass strike is an explosion of adrenaline. You never know who's on the hook, a small fighter or a real monster. I remember a bass over 5 kilograms that I caught in Florida. It jumped out of the water 3 times. In those seconds, I almost forgot how to breathe. Sometimes I release a fish with such sadness as if I'm saying goodbye to a friend, but I know it's the right thing to do so that tomorrow someone else can feel the same emotions. In America, bass fishing almost always follows the catch and release principle. It's part of the culture. Without it, there would be no tournaments and no big populations. I always wet my hands before touching a fish so I don't damage its protective slime. It's a small detail that saves lives. When I release a bass, I watch it disappear into the depths. And every time I think that maybe we'll meet again, that's the magic. The largest largemouth bass in history weighed over 10 kilograms. This record has stood for decades, and every bass angler dreams of breaking it. I once fished a lake where, according to legend, a new record holder lives, and every cast felt like a chance to go down in history. It's an incredible feeling. Bass taught me patience. It showed me that not everything is solved by force. Sometimes you need silence and observation. For some, it's just fishing. For me, it's a way of life. Every trip to the lake is a new story. And if you've never caught an American bass before, I envy you because your best strikes are still ahead. And maybe today, you'll make your very first legendary cast.